United Devil channel with me, JB. Hope we're all doing extremely well this afternoon. So this is a little bit of a bonus show because I had to come on because of the transfer news, because of Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Ben. Yeah. So he's been talking on the United stand. Look, I like Ben Jacobs. He's a good guy. Whenever he speaks, I listen. So I've been sent a sort of like a clip of him speaking. So look, I've got to tell you where it's from. You know, we don't lie on here. We don't pretend. So this is what we do. So the United stand. So Mr. Jacobs has been talking on there. So Ben, if you don't know him, really good guy. Not quite up there with Fabrizio, not quite up there with Ornstein just yet, but really articulate guy. So Ben is good. So look, this is a bonus show. If you've never been here before, get into this community, get into this chat. This is the best chat and community on this platform. I'll always say that we may not be the biggest, but we certainly are the best. Get in there with your comments and your chats. Let me know about anything you've heard on any subject around the club. Always be respectful to the community, be respectful to yourselves, be respectful to me. Otherwise, the ban hammer comes out and we ban you. We don't mind the banter. Look, we don't mind banter, or we don't mind, rival fans being on here as well. Some of our best community contributors are basically people from rival clubs. The other thing is, I'm not a dictator of this chat. So basically what it means is that if you guys get your opinions in, I will read out your chats. This is why the reason why these shows take so long is because I do legitimately read out your chats. This is that sort of channel. There are super chats and all that stuff on the channel, but the obligation isn't there to do that. I will still read out your chats irrespective of of that alone. So get into the chat, get into the community. Let me know in the chat what you've heard today. So I wasn't expecting to do this show. So Jacobs, so Ben, on Talk Sport, he's a really good guy. He's been talking on the United stand today. Like, as I say, I get sent clips sort of all the time, or people push me in the area of when things happen. So again, I had no idea that was going to come out. So I think it's really important when these transfer stories to come out is that we jump on here, we talk about it, we put it to bed, we talk about it. But because it's out there, we've got to get on here, and we do have to have those conversations about that. So look, as I say, let me know where you're from, let me know where you are watching from. You guys are the best community. So I thought I would jump on here, and again, I don't necessarily like to do things, and this is not for clicks. This is legitimately a transfer news update. A lot of it is going to be the same stuff, and I bring in some of the stuff that we spoke about this morning. Bring in whatever you like into the show, and as I say, look, as long as we are just respectful in this community to each other, then pretty much most things go. So what has Ben been saying? So Ben basically on the United stand has been talking about Semenyo, going into a little bit more about Semenyo, going into where Liverpool's linked into him, going in about Xerxes again, as we spoke this morning. So Gomes, Neves, Guehi, Baleba, and sort of where we are. Lewis Cabral says, hello my friend, hope you're doing extremely well. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the UDC, as we've anointed ourselves. I'm from FC Porto. Look, Lewis, the more fans from other clubs from around the world, I think is awesome. Get into this chat, contribute. Porto, Porto are a historic club for the Galatasaray. Yeah, I mean, look, guys, what I love on here is I love all sorts of different opinions, different chats. That's what makes this channel great, I think. Mohammed Miran says, hello my friend. Get into the chat. Get into it all today. Look, guys, tell me about your clubs. Love to discuss all different sorts of stuff. Obviously, this is a United fan channel, and and we will go through the stuff on the channel. So Ben has been talking. If you don't know Ben, so Jacob's Ben on X. Ben's brilliant. I think he's such an articulate, very, very intelligent guy. You are for Man United. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. This is a United fan channel. Hello. Would you rather see a tree grow or a knee grow? Interesting. Or a knee, as in your knee, that will grow. Nice try. Very, very nice try there. But yeah, I would much prefer to see. It'd be interesting to see somebody's knee actually grow. Imagine if you got your kneecap and then it grows. A tree that grows is very, very slow. So nice try. It's difficult. United, it is difficult. It really is. However, I don't know what that is, my friend. So get into the chat. You can do your best to try to trip me up if you like. Are you trying to say Mbumo? I guess you are. That's up to you. Look, as I say, get into this chat. So where are we? Are you Hassan? Are you Amorim in or Amorim out? We can go through that. I'm happy to go through that as well. It's really easy for me to comment on that. Hassan, I'm Amorim in. I have been since the start of this season. I've been Amorim in since start of the season, since pre-season. We did all the pre-season games on here. I was Amorim in then. Even after the Grimsby game, people were talking about the manager out. Even I was basically saying on here how if Amorim keeps on putting himself and his beliefs before the club, then he sort of has to go. Only on the basis that I don't believe that anybody's bigger than this club. There's no manager bigger than this club. There is no player bigger than this club. And if they start putting their own agendas before the club, then they have to go. So Ben, what has he been saying? So look, talking about Semenyo. So where are we with Semenyo? So Semenyo, look, there is a release clause that was revealed on TalkSport, and then it's gone out to Fabrizio, gone out to Ornstein, who then basically come out and put a price on the release clause. So the release clause, Scotty, legend of the chat, as always, my friend. I thought I would do an extra show, simply because Ben has been talking again. I got sent a video of him talking, and I'll always be fair and honest as to where it came from. So somebody sent me a clip of the United stand. I'm just basically listening to him talk on there. I think it was Beth that was on there. So just talking to him. I don't think we get him, to be honest, says Scott. So let's go through that. I think I'm of the same opinion as you, my friend. So look, there's a release clause in there of £65 million, so 60 plus 5. That is basically for the first 2 weeks of the window, and then there's a lesser amount in the summer. So basically there are 2 release clauses in there. Now the reason why the release clause kicks in, Beth is the only decent one on there. She knows her stuff. Yeah, I mean I don't really watch it at all, really. I used to watch it, and then I tend to get things sent to me in clips because people like to compare, which is really strange. People like to compare this channel to that channel. People like to compare different things, right? So I get sent stuff all of the time. Yeah, it's very, very interesting on that side. So look, I think Beth did a good job on that, talking to him. So what was Ben talking about today? This guy said, "Hey GB, do you think on reflection Shesko wasn't the right striker choice?" What do I think about Shesko? So Shesko wasn't the first choice. Simple as that. Shesko wasn't the first choice. Do I like Shesko? Yes. Do I think that Shesko will come good? Yes. Do I think it was a good opportunity to not pass up? We couldn't pass up on that opportunity. Our first options were Delap. Delap was the first choice. Osman was there as well. Osman was there as well. Who else was there? Osman, Delap, Gyökeres as well. So there's really nothing more that we could do. So we needed a striker. There's nothing that we could do. Do I think Šeško is the right striker? Yes, I do. He just needs time, and I think this fan base is so quick to judge a play. I mean, the guy's played 11 games. We've got to factor that in. He played 11 games. Now, let me give you an example, and I'm not suggesting he's going to be this player. That Thierry Henry, for example, didn't just come into this league and started to tear things up. Yes, after, I can't remember if it was 15, 16 odd games. Completely different player. Came into this league, and it wasn't like he tore it up in the first season. He had a good back end to the season, and then obviously the rest is history. There were very, very few players that come into this league. And especially in this league as it is now, Rooney. Rooney, people forget that Rooney had a couple of years in the Toffees. When he came to this league, when he came to this club, ready-made at 18 years old, he's a completely different person. But Šeško needs time. Šeško's had 11 games and was so quick in this fan base not to give people time. So do I think, to answer the question, that Šeško is the right target? Yes, I do. Was he our first target? No, but I do think that he is absolutely the right man for the job. So what are we saying? She's saying Beth is the only decent one on there. She knows the stuff. Yeah, big up to Beth. Scott says Šeško is the right forward for us. Just needs the service, then he'll fire and build his confidence. The only person to come in the league and start to fire was Rooney. Exactly. I mean, I don't remember another person. I think it was in his first game against Fenerbahce. Scored a hat trick. Takes the ball off Giggsy and fires it into the back of the net from a free kick. Generational talent. The only other person I remember coming into this league at a young age and tearing it up was Owen. Owen won the Golden Boot when he was 17. He's pretty much finished by the time he was 21. But yeah, Owen come into this league at 17. Probably those two, probably from what I remember, really were probably the sort of only two world class, even at that age, players. Usman says, the world we live in now means that when you spend 70 million, people expect a return straight away. I agree. You need players to give time, and use the players give time. You should get 10 goals. I think he will. I think as long as he doesn't have an injury ravaged season, I think towards the back end of the season, I do think Šeško will sort of come good. So I'm not too concerned about that. Scott says, took Ronaldo time to bed in as well. We did. I mean, Cristiano wasn't the Cristiano probably until after he come back from the Euros, or maybe just before. I think it was, he started to do well probably a year or two in after he signed and acclimatized. And I think he really started to come into his own, I think, around 2006 to 2007, which obviously culminated in that season where he got, I think, 40 goals. So yeah, it does take time. The lad is young, and as you say, you pay £70 million for a player, and people expect instant results. As I said, you can also argue that what made from Newcastle was done really well. He's gone under the radar, not the best football, but he's scoring goals frequently. But again, I think he's older, right? I don't think you can even argue that. I think he's done extremely well. I don't think that you could argue that he hasn't. I agree with you. I think it's a given. I've been really impressed with him. I think he's a little bit older. But again, Bundesliga, right? Just some players are just good. I think Newcastle, the way they play, I think if Šeško played in that Newcastle side, I think he'd score goals because he's got the midfield. They'd give him the ball. I think he's only 23. True. I think that if you put Šeško in the Newcastle side, I think he'd score goals as well because Newcastle play in a completely different way. They try to get the ball to the striker. Connor said, "Hello, bro. I'm Mancunian." Amazing. I'm not Mancunian. Scott is legend. I am not. But again, I do love Manchester. It is a great place. JB is from Essex. Yeah, I'm an Essex Mancunian. That gets levelled at my door all of the time. How can I talk about this club because I don't come from Manchester? Go and figure, right? So, what has Ben been talking about? So we've been talking about. He's been talking about Semenyo again. Semenyo is going to dominate for the next couple of weeks, right? I'm from Indonesia. Welcome, my friend. JB is a fake man. I'm not even going to do my accent because it is absolutely terrible, and I think I'll get people trying to lynch me. Yeah, it won't be good. So Semenyo, I think the reason why he appeals is there's no AFCON. I think he's tearing it up. So how does right? Let's try and do Manc accent, right? Oh my god, it's gonna be so bad. No, that's Scouse. I can do Scouse. That's Scouse. Manc is like, all right, lad. Yeah, all right, lad. All right, kid. All right, kid. I'm going to get absolutely smashed for that. Yeah. Anyway, so Semenyo, the reason I can do Scouts, Brummy London, I can do. Although it makes great, isn't it? I can do that when I think that's easy, mate. Brummy, mate. JB, are you in disguise? Well, I try my best. I do. I can do Scottish. All right. How you doing? I can do that. I can do Scottish. I can do, all right, mate. All right. I do like that Semenyo. He's great, isn't he? Semenyo. I should do the whole show like that, mate. He's got no AFCON, has he? See, a man of many talents. So, Semenyo, look, first half of the window, his release clause is 65, so 60 plus 5. Second half, summertime, that goes down. So I don't think it goes down below 50. He can even do Champers. He can even do Coverage Champers. Yeah. See, I'm just a man of many talents. No, I really am not. So, So when we're talking about gone off on a complete tangent. So Semenyo, look, United want a winger, and Semenyo basically Semenyo doesn't want to be a wing back. I don't think, as has been confirmed, that he doesn't have any intention of being a wing back. He's a wide player, can play through the middle. Now, I was of the opinion, where would he play? Right, we've got Šeško, we've got Cunha, we've got Mbeumo. Where's he going to play? Is what we do here. We just ram. Exactly. I think it's more so about what I do. Right. It's me that normally rambles crap. Right. So, Semenyo, look. So we are looking for a winger type. We are looking for an explosive, quick, unique forward player. Now, what does this mean? So this basically means that we want a versatile forward line. So we want a forward line that we can interchange. Cunha can play as a 9. Mbeumo can play through the centre. Semenyo can be the wide player, so we can play a wide 10. I think he can play through the middle as well. So really what Amorim wants is a versatile front 3, front 2, and to basically just have that scary attack. He's not looking necessarily for a number 10, but I think it is apparent that what he wants to do is he doesn't necessarily want to go and get another striker as such. I think he would use Cunha there. I think you could use Semenyo there. But again, what does this mean for the likes of a Xerxes? What does this mean for the likes of a Mason Mount as well? The summer will tell. So Liverpool are interested in Semenyo as well. I'm of the opinion, and I think Scott. I think we sort of share this as well. Is that I think Liverpool look at him. If there's an opportunity to get him, so what could happen? There could be a race, right? You could have United in that race. I don't know where we get this money from. You could have Liverpool in the race as well. I know somebody triggers that clause, and then everybody moves, because the beauty of this clause really is that it's a mandatory clause. Marc Guehi says hi, hello my friend. Hope you're doing extremely well, my friend. So I just think that we would need to get in this race. So do I think somebody's going to trigger this Semenyo clause? I don't know, because it depends really on, I think, who really wants Semenyo. I think if there's an appetite for the money, I think United would be happy to let it roll through till the summer when that release clause does come down to around about the 55 million pound mark. Then the problem for us at that point is, I think Semenyo is one of those players that do you say, look, we think he's that good that we bring some of the budget from the summer forward to get him. I think that is a possibility, as we've spoken about before when we're thinking about PSR. Our headroom isn't great, but I think you can manipulate some of that budget for this now. Do you go and try and steal a march on everybody else and go and get that player now? Do you say, look, we're going to wait? If nobody triggers that move, then you wait until the summer when that money comes down? Or do you go, look, we will pay a premium now because we need this player? Are some players, when there's an opportunity to get some players, do you go to get those players now? And I think that is the question. How highly regarded do we think Semenyo is? Scott says Liverpool or Arsenal would trigger it. Look, Scott, again, look, Liverpool, Arsenal are there or thereabouts. Again, so I would say that. But one thing to say, and I do think Scott makes a good point, I think Liverpool, Arsenal have to be there. When a player like Semenyo comes available, you have to get in that mix. Now, I don't think it is as simple as Semenyo goes to Arsenal or Liverpool. I think it is about the pitch. And when I say pitch, I don't mean the football pitch. I'm talking about where is Semenyo going to play? So Liverpool, are Liverpool in a position right now to go, you can come into us, right? So let's just say a scenario, and Scott says it depends on where they sit in the league at the time of the window. Scott, and I'm just about to say that, is if we get to December, the end of December, and we are in the mix, right? If we're in the top four, and this is a big if, and we are pushing for a European place, and this is why Europe is going to be so important, I think we get into the mix. Hassan says, I've come back. Thank you, mate. And I have a question. Do you think that United have a realistic chance of winning the Premier League or Champions League or both in the next 5 years? Do we have a realistic chance? And I'll answer that question. And look, the chat can answer that question as well. What do I think? Do I think that we can get into a race in the next 5 years? A club of this size, yes. as I said before, I demand every single season that we win a league. I demand every single season we get into the Champions League, not because I'm a fool. It's because it basically keeps standards high, and we have to keep this club accountable. We have to keep these players accountable and keep the pressure on this club to do well. And I think Scott's right. I think 5 years, I think it depends. At that time, I think in 5 years' time, we've not won the league for 18 years. And I think the club the size of ours, and if there's ambition, I think you get into that. You imagine, let's just say in a hypothetical scenario, United go and get a Semenyo in the next window. They go and get a Anderson, which that won't happen, right? Or we go and get a midfield target. And then next window, and because of that, we get into the Champions League. And then because of that, more players want to come, we get more money. And then we have another window and we strengthen there. And then the next year comes. So, we've got, what's that? That's 10 windows. So let's just say we take it from this window here. And we go 5 years from this window. That's 10 windows. We should be able to, with the right attitude, the right thinking, the right people in there, we should be able to get into that top race. But a lot of it depends on the Champions League. You have to speculate to accumulate, right? So you have to say, look, we're going to bring some of the budget on the basis that we think that we can get into the Champions League. So what happens is this, right? Imagine if your budget, so our headroom at the moment is £64 million, right? That is what we've got. Now, if you say we're going to bring 30 million for say 50 million pounds now, and we're going to say we'll spend 50 million. Well, we're going to bring in 50 million because you can spread out and amortize that player over like 5 years. That's one of your players that you've got now, right? So for the sake of 50 million, you then earn a Champions League space. It means you've got more games. It means you get the money from the Champions League. So that 50 instantly becomes probably like 100 million. Because you're in the Champions League, you get more sponsors. So that 100 million is probably more like 150 million. So you spent 50, you've made at least like 100 million. You've then got more home games. You can then attract more players, attract more sponsors. But you've got to risk that. You've got to risk that in this window. But what I think they're trying to do is they're trying to go, look, we're going to try to limp through with this squad, not spend another penny, have their cake and eat it. They want to not spend money and qualify for the Champions League, get as much cash as they possibly can without being brave. So, can we win the league? Yes, but we have to continually spend money. Yes, I don't agree just chucking money at anybody, but we have to be sensible, but at the same time, we have to be brave. So Hassan says, thank you for answering my question. It's such a long response. I fully agree with you. Look, Hassan, that's the one thing we do on here, mate, is that we talk about this, right? We're talking about this because this has come out today. So we have to talk about the transfers and we have to talk about questions like this. This is your show, and I'm going to answer your questions, right? Because I think it's a fantastic question, and I've got to give you that answer, right? Guy says we need to spend money to make money and get into the Champions League. And Scott, you're spot on, right? In life, sometimes you've got to take a risk. You speculate to accumulate. If you bring some budget in, we're going to spend, Bobby, legend of the chat, my friend, I hope you're doing extremely well. If in, cheers. So if you spend that money now, we're going to be saving £1 million a week. So if Casemiro, risk it for a biscuit, risk it for a biscuit. Risk it for a soggy biscuit. That is what we need to do, right? It's like putting a bullet into a I can't say the word because if I do, the video will get banned. But you put a bullet into a pew pew, spin it round, and you've got to take that chance. So as Scott says there, you go and get a Semenyo, you go and get another player, and if that gets you a Champions League, that 50 million is instantaneously worth 150 million. We just have to be brave, right? So Semenyo is there, right? I was of the opinion that Semenyo is one of those players. You get opportunity, Jesus Christ. There are opportunities that come up. So let me give you an example, right? If, for example, Messi, not now, but will you shut up? Leave me alone. If Messi comes up, right, and you can get Messi for 150 million, right? I'm not suggesting that Semenyo would have that impact. I'm not suggesting that he's that sort of player, but he is worth a punt, right? I think he's one of the Premier League's best players this season. Sometimes if an opportunity comes up and it's not necessarily in a position that you want, but it's a position that some players you have to go get, you have to go get them. So for example, like with Scott, if a Valverde came up, and Valverde was like, I don't know, 120 million quid, and that's a player that you could get, and he was open to join the club. I know Scott would go and spend that sort of money. So sometimes there are opportunities in the market that you've got to go get. Now, according to Ben Jacobs, it's not as simple as he's going to go to Liverpool. It's not as simple that he'll go to Arsenal. It's not as simple that he'll come to us. It is also about the pitch. It's also about what is it that he can do when he plays here. Now, the replacement for a Salah may actually hold some sway. What's that? Sent a bloody message. I couldn't care less. Yeah. So you're talking about the project. Now, if we can get ourselves into that top four race. Now, I can see a situation whereby Liverpool do they continue to stagnate this season? They have to replace Salah. Now, if Liverpool are down there in 8th and have a bad year, we don't know what their headroom is like either, since nearly spending £500 million. Arsenal, their depth and their strength is a ridiculous thing. Seriously, you put me off. Stop beeping. Shut up. Here we go. Beep. Shut up. Done. And I think that Scott is right. If we can offer other Champions League football that is more appealing to the top players, and that's it as well. You've got to consider this as well. Is that if Liverpool say they're in and around 8th or 9th, is Semenyo really going to want to go there? Particularly if he feels that that they're not playing well and they might not get into the Champions League. Arsenal have ridiculous depth. Is he going to really want to go to a team that's got that much depth? You've got Eze, you've got Martinelli. I know that he's not the greatest player, but they've got a ridiculous depth. So, Mr. Free says Semenyo is very similar to Anthony Martial. Bobby says 25.1k subscribers. Well played, JB. Look, 25k.1 subscribers is ridiculous, right? Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the numbers today on this stream are low. I don't know why. I think the platform today is just sometimes it's just absolutely dog, and does me a dirty sometimes. But yeah, 25.1 subscribers is ridiculous. Never in a million years thought that I'd even get to 100 subscribers. Particularly doing this sort of thing. I think the testament really to the channel, and the testament is really to the community. You know, guys, we get people in here sometimes who come on with an attitude of, you know, I'm going to be horrible, I'm going to say some stuff, and the amount of people that then get into the chat that then start talking to us, you know, they realize that this community is different to other communities, and they do subscribe. So look, I never thought, you know, we'd be able to sort of, we're not competing really, but you know, we're bigger than some of the channels that have been on here for years. You know, I take my hat off to those sorts of channels. You know, not the massive ones, but I take my hat off to the smaller ones. You know, who are grinding away. You know, this is a difficult gig to do, right? You know, particularly when you're talking about, you know, a club like this. There's so many other channels there that are fantastic as well. So I'm very, very fortunate. Very fortunate to have a community as good as this. Very fortunate to have you guys here. So thank you so much. Mr. Free says Semenyo is very similar to Anthony Martial. Interesting. Interesting. I can see the comparison. I can actually. I can see the comparison. I do think Semenyo though is a bit more direct. I think he's a bit more of a winger. But Martial, I think, was probably, I think he was better at close control. I think Martial, I think, was better in tight spaces. I've not seen Semenyo loads, but Semenyo is very, very quick. I think Martial was quicker over the first 5 or 10 yards, and he's very, very, very good with the ball at his feet. But I do think that I can see the comparison. I can. Scott says he will want to play more regular football, not be a bit part player coming on off the bench. To say Arsenal, if he comes here, he would get game time week in and week out. And I actually think what Amorim wants to do. Mr. Fee says the problem is getting into the United team is harder than the Bournemouth team. Agreed. Scott says I agree, Mr. Freeze, but he gets more, but he'll get more chances of getting in the squad than Liverpool or Arsenal. But do you know what I would like about that though? You know, imagine you could argue at that point then what would then happen is that players like Mason Mount would then have a decision to make. I like the idea of having 4 or 5 players for 4 positions. So what I mean about that, and guys, you give me your opinions here, is that I like the idea of, you know, and you can count some of these players. You could count a Semenyo and a Cunha as a versatile player that could actually play as a number 9, right, or as a false 9. So not only would you have Shesko in there as well, learning from these guys, but you'd also have, you know, you'd have a Semenyo behind you, and Mbeumo behind you, a Cunha, and particularly if Bruno Fernandes goes. So I think what will pay dividends in this team is when you have a proper number 8. Bruno Fernandes right now occupies those spaces that a number 10 would, because look, he goes into an auto mode, right? So Cunha, the reason why sometimes Cunha doesn't do particularly well is because Bruno Fernandes is occupying those spaces that Cunha likes, those pocket, that number 10 pocket space, right? So I think not only if we get Semenyo, I think that will be a game changer with what I think Amorim wants to do, and then getting rid of Fernandes or pushing him back to a proper number 8, or even using him as a 10 and getting a proper number 8 who knows that position, who knows where to play. I think imagine a front four potentially of Semenyo, Semenyo, Cunha, Mbeumo, and a Shesko, and imagine those players all fighting for those positions. Kelvin says, "Hey JB, how you doing?" Kelvin, mate, I'm doing extremely well, and hope you are as well, my friend. Legend of the chat, as always. So look, get in your opinions. I remember a time, and the reason why we're spending time in the Semenyo thing as well is because look, I think it's important. I think it reminds me of the time when we had, and we're talking about those front positions, right? When we had the likes of Andy Cole, Dwight York, Sheringham, Solskjaer. You had 4 players for 2 positions. Sometimes you could play those players out on the left or the right, as well. Even to the point, the fact where we had Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez, and Berbatov. We still had those players, and they still all fought for positions. That season, we won the Champions League with those 4. Berbatov, I don't even think was on the bench, but he still had a part to play. The season when we won the treble, Sheringham and Solskjaer didn't start the final. They came on and changed the game. Sheringham played in the FA Cup that season and scored a goal. Solskjaer did things as well. So, it's having those strength and depth. And I think to win Premier League, we need a squad as good as that. Mr. Free says, if Bruno Fernandes hits the heights of 2020 and 21, we surely win the league. I wish he could score hat-tricks in the Premier League like midweek for Portugal. Bruno will only do that when he plays in a position what is a 10. I think, Mr. Freeze, look, Bruno Fernandes, Thomas says, I'm Italian, do you love pasta? I don't love pasta. I don't love pasta. I like pasta. I'm not the biggest fan of pasta, to be honest with you, but I do run a lot. So pasta is really, really good for carbohydrate, right? So I do eat pasta. Do I love pasta? When it's done right, when I'm not the biggest fan of this, the pasta that we get here, but when you get a really nice spaghetti, something nice and simple, or like a carbonara, a really, really fresh, good one. And I'm not talking about the crap that we've got here. Do you like? Oh, mate, I love pizza. Who doesn't like pizza? Who doesn't like pizza? I absolutely love pizza. Is there anything greater in the world than a pizza? You could probably argue a steak is better. You could probably argue that burger, but no, pizza for me. I'm all over pizza. Kelvin says, we need a squad with midfielders that fill the pockets and quick in pressing. And this is why the Baleba thing, we'll talk about that as well. Neves has come up again. The Gomes has come up again. I love pasta, cheese, and tuna. I like tuna. I don't know. Yeah. I don't mind tuna, pasta, and sweet corn. You have to come in Naples. It's very good pizza. I'd love to go to Naples. I think that would be fun. I would love to go to Naples. Yeah, and I'd love to go there because I'd love to eat real pasta. Eat all proper pizza. But I know it's not just that, but like olives and that sort of meats and that sort of stuff as well. I'd love to. One day. So yeah, look, Semenyo, we're going to be talking about this, I think, for a long time. I am hoping that we can get into that race. We should do. And I just think if we're planning to go and win a league in the next 5 years, these are the types of players that we need to go and get. Nicky T says, I only eat tuna and a banana sandwich. Jesus. I only eat tuna and a banana sandwich. Is that can't be together, right? Semenyo has the mentality, but he's ready to go with. But is he ready to go with Amorim's flow? I think that's a very, very good observation. I think you don't know, do you? You don't know. You don't know, mate. It's a you don't know until he comes in. Do I think he's got the right mentality? I don't think he has. But as you say, it's not just the right mentality with this manager. It is, can he fit into that system? Mag Empty says, what do you think about the situation with Semenyo? Think he will go on loan? Oh, that's a good question. My initial reaction to it is no, because I think he's got a part to play. As we said this morning, we've got to think about this, right? We're going to be light. Are we good? So let's try to break this down, right? So I'll answer that question while talking about this as well. So today, what Ben mentioned today. So Ben Jacobs, right? So what he basically mentioned today, and Ben is fantastic, right? But Ben is when you got Fabrizio Ornstein, I actually think Ben is probably up there as well. I really, really like him. He's a very intelligent, very articulate guy. He knows his stuff. He's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think he actually deserves, to be bigger than I think what he is. I think he's a fantastic guy, and he's been talking about the Gomes, Neves, and the Anderson, and all those sorts of midfield players. So if we're going to look at this from a logical perspective, right, will Semenyo go? So if we're looking at that from a logical perspective, and this is what I try to do on here, is this. Anderson, if we get him, if we look to get him now, is going to be 100 million. We're not going to do that. A Baleba will be 100 million. We're not going to do that. You've got Wharton, going to be 70 odd. Now, we're not going to do that. Stiller, I think he's around 40 million, but Stuttgart can enact a clause, and it's not going to happen now. So, situation that we've got right now is that we're not going to do it, right? So that means that we've only got we've got Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes, Ugarte, and Semenyo. Will Casemiro stay fit the whole season? Who knows? He can only get to 60 minutes. Bruno Fernandes, we all know Bruno Fernandes is an engine that doesn't get injured, but he is getting older. Maybe it happens. So Semenyo's going to play. Semenyo will absolutely play. We've got 10 games in the space of a month. When we get to the end of those 10 games, then I think we can assess it more. So I think the only way that Semenyo goes on loan is if we get one in. Now, the only player, and I've been adamant on this, and I'm going to be adamant still on this, is that I think the only signing that we do in terms of a midfield, and potentially the only signing that we make, is the Gallagher signing. So if a Gallagher comes in, I think Semenyo will be allowed to leave on loan, and I think Napoli would be the one. So look, I do hope that Semenyo gets a run in the team. I think that if Semenyo proves himself in the next 10 games, I think he stays. I think he gets the opportunity, and I think he stays. Got players going to the African Cup of Nations as well. Fernandes may have to step into 10. So what that means is we've only got 3 players for those 2. Well, we've got 3 players for 8 and 6. So do I think right now Semenyo will go on loan? No. I think he'll be given his chance. And I think then if he fluffs his lines, then at that point I think we assess the situation. Napoli United now, man. But a question, do you remember the night of final of the Europe Cup in 2021? We're talking about the Champions League, or are we talking about the Europa League? I can't think. The title will be won within the next 2 years. Mr. Freeze, I admire your optimism. Nicky T says it's gorgeous. I'm not sure about that. Scottish deep fried Mars bars. I've never tried one. I've got no intention of either. I believe we can win it this year. Mr. Freeze, look. Mr. Freeze, he says, I don't care if people think I am. Look, the one good thing about Mr. Freeze is that what we do on here is that I'll give you your opportunity to say your piece, right? I'll give you your opportunity to have your opinion and say your piece, right? I am not going to say anything about that opinion because that is your opinion, right? I've got a responsibility on here, I believe, to be as unbiased to a degree and have a logical opinion. I don't think we win a league this season, right? I don't think we've got the depth. I don't think we've got the squad to do it. 2 more injuries to this squad. Remember, we're losing 3 players, and not just 3, ordinary players. We're losing 3 good players, right? 1 injury or 2 injuries from that, and we're in a crisis. I just don't think we've got the depth. Now, Mr. Freeze, if we do in the league, you can come back and say, I was right. No, you can say, I told you all that we would win the league. Let's see. Stranger things like have happened. Let's see if we can get through these next 10 games. Look, if we get through these next 10 games and we win 9 out of 10 and we're up there, look, never say never. And I'm still on the opinion that if we still have this squad as it is in place right now, we lose 3 players and we don't replace or we don't buy any players. I think with the inconsistency of this squad, and look, I'm talking about the last 5 games, right? We have not played brilliantly all season. The last 5 games, you can argue 1 or 2 of those we played good. The last 2 games have been dog shit. The last 2 games have been awful. So this team is inconsistent. I think this team can go on a run, a bad run, equally as it can go on a good run as well. Let's see. We can only take it game by game. But Mr. Freeze, I applaud. I absolutely applaud a different opinion to mine. I applaud the optimism. Why can't you guys think that we can win a league? Just because I don't, why can't you guys think that we can finish top 4 or win a league? I don't share it, but there's nothing wrong with that opinion. Tomas says, no, I don't think so. Is Elliot Anderson worth $120 million? What's that in pounds? Like 100 million pounds? No, I don't think he is. No, but there's a Premier League tax. There's an all sort of tax that happens, right? He's not worth it. In the summer, people won't pay it because there are clauses in the contract. If somebody wants him now, you pay a premium. I don't think he's going to go. I think he's been told by the England manager to stay where he is. Don't move anywhere. You'll get into this squad. So I don't think he goes anywhere. And then I think in the summer, I think he'll go for around about that 70, 75 mark. So I don't think he is worth it. Not right now. You're talking money of one of the, of some of the best midfielders in the world? Do I think he's one of the best midfielders in the world right now? It's a debate that I think you could have. I don't think he is. So I'm from Bergamo, the Atlanta City. Do you know? I know Bergamo from being in. Is it Earl Grey tea? I think it is. But yeah, I am aware of the place. Thomas, never mind, you'll get over it. If Gallagher is a choice, McTominay should come back. The difference, Mr. Freeze, is money, mate. It is money. We don't have the headroom to do it. Would I take McTominay back? The question here is, where would McTominay fit? McTominay would be a number 10. Look, I'm not arguing that he's a fantastic player. Look, I think it's an obvious thing that he's a fantastic player, right? I'm not disputing that at all. But I think we need 2 CMs more than we need another number 10. I do. The Gallagher signing and the McTominay signing are 2 different players, are 2 different areas of the pitch. The Gallagher signing would be a proper number 8. I think he would be a deputy for Casemiro. Even looking to maybe even replace him. Maybe he fights in this side to get him out. But I think Gallagher comes in as a one of those versatile midfielders who could either help out at 8 or 6. Thomas says McTominay is a great player, but I didn't believe in him. Agree with you completely. Kelvin says Elliot Anderson's contract will have a release clause. Yeah, he has. He's got Elliot Anderson's contract, and again, according to Ornstein, Fabrizio, Ben, there are several different. They're not clauses. There's several different stipulations in this contract that basically say, you can leave for a Champions League club. You can do this and that. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, there are. So he's not going to cost that. Now the only problem that we've got is in the next window. They're going to be City are going to be after this guy. You're going to have City, you're going to have Arsenal. Well, Arsenal maybe not. Liverpool possibly. You're going to have the likes of Bayern, I think, as well. You're going to have us. Are we going to win that race? Mr. Freeze, top 4. Are you doing a great? You're doing a great job, my brother. Thank you. Top 4 is well. The thing is, Scott, I think, my friend, I think top 4 for me depends on a signing. I think it depends on who we get. I think if we can get through Christmas and we can get through the January without our African players, then I think that possibly we can mount the top 4 charge. Okay, UDC, who do you think will win the league? I think Arsenal win the league. I think City are on a top. Just don't forget this, right? Arsenal have a crisis right now. They have got players that are injured. They've got Gabriel's out. Is Saliba out as well? They've got about 10 players out. So I think that this December could be devastating for them. I think they've got about 8 or 9 players out. I think City could capitalise. And if they can, I think it's going to be out of City and Arsenal. Even when City weren't doing particularly well at the start of the season, my opinion on it was you never sleep on City. Don't sleep on a City because Pep knows how to win this league. He knows his side. They've got players there. When you've got a Haaland, a Foden, you've got. I mean, they're littered. They're littered with great players, and Pep seemed to have rebuilt his team again. I didn't think Pep had the appetite to rebuild a team again. He's been given the money. He's rebuilt his side. And after, the difference between Liverpool and City this season is that, I think Pep actually went underneath the radar a bit, and he didn't just go and buy super world-class players. He got some good bargains there as well, and I think he's actually done quite a good job this season. So I do think Arsenal have more depth, but I think that the injuries that they've got now, depending on how long that they're out and depending on how good the versatile players are to come into the squad, I think that they could this month could be the month that they suffer. Evening, mate. Herb 1234. Hello, mate. Cricketer says, glory to Man U. What do you think about Ahmad's performance this season? Ahmad has been one of my favourite players this season. I think down that side, I think he's been fantastic. And I don't think this is his fault. Look, he is not a defensive player. I think we get caught out going back. He's not a defender. I don't think he's very good necessarily at going back, but he gives it his all. I think he's quick. I think he's better than what we've got on the left-hand side. I think he's been brilliant. I think he's been one of our best players. I think in Bumo, Ahmad, De Ligt, for me, I think those three, and Lamens as well, actually. So, and I think those for me have been our best players this season. Brown Knight, what did I miss? Mate, you've missed loads. Ahmad has been good, but in Bumo does still the spotlight as he's been so good this season. Agree with you completely. Anderson is in a win-win situation come summer. If United are in the Champions League, we get him. If not, we don't. I don't think it's as simple as that. I do think that there's going to be a battle for him, but we need to be in the Champions League to get him. I think a Baleba, I think, is probably the one that's nailed on. Not guaranteed, but I think he is. So I would say Baleba first. Anderson's going to be a difficult one to do, I think. Cricketed says, have you heard about the young Colombian that we've signed? Yeah, I can never say his name right. Oroquez, or whatever his name is. Yeah, I did a video on him about 2 months ago. Yeah, he looks like a good player, but we need players for now. We do need players for now. So I'm hoping that Kone can come through. He can come through. Look, the more players that we've got that come through, the youngsters, the better. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for these younger bucks to come through and start to challenge. The likes of a Casemiro as well. I was going to say City for me. Over dependence on Mbumo scares me. The AFCON games will make or break our season. I agree with you. Herb 1-3. Ahmed nips at players when they're defending. He is wasted running back. I agree. Oh, ye of little faith. 21 is coming. Orozco, I think. Yeah, it is. I can never pronounce his name. So, other players that Ben was talking about. So, what was he talking about? So, he's talking about Gomes signing, the João Gomes signing from Wolves. Dark Knight says, UDC, we are buying these young players just to sell, or are they genuine contenders for the first team? I think it's a mixture of both. I do. We are following the Chelsea model. Whether we like that or not, I think that is what we are doing. I think that is what the plan is. I think that is what we do. That's what we're doing. I think we are accumulating some of the best young players, and then I think then what we do is that we then try to, if they don't pan out, we sell them. Do I think that that's the right way to do it? I don't know. If we're stuck with the ownership, we need to do something. So I think part of it is because Amorim clearly doesn't like to play the youth players. So I think it's going to be a mixture of both. I think what we are going to see probably over the next 2 or 3 years is we are going to see some of these youngsters bedded into the team. But I think that a big selection of these will be to sell. Mr. Free says Thomas Muller on loan. What, another number 10? Not for me. Do you think Nuno Mendes would fit our system? Yes. I think he's the absolute perfect wing back, mate. I think he would be absolutely perfect. I think he would be brilliant. I think he'd be absolutely, and I assume you're talking about the PSG wing back, right? I think he'd be perfect. I think he'd be absolutely perfect. So, what else are we talking about? So, again, Xerxes, as we spoke about this morning, I want too much on that one. Xerxes wants to find a move. Xerxes probably is going to push a move, but sadly, if he doesn't, if we don't find a replacement for him, he's not going to go out. So, the main thing, the Xerxes thing, it's all about whether or not we can find players in the market. So, the Gomes thing. So, the Gomes one for me, and again, according to Ben, to Jacob's Ben on X. So Ben is on the United stand, Talk Sport, really, really good guy. He basically, is saying that Wolves may encourage teams to go and sign him on the basis that can they buy more players? So will the money that they can possibly get right now get them players so they can, because Wolves are probably going to go down, right? So are they able to get the money in now to go and buy players that will either help them try to stay in this league, or then when they go down, get those players in now, encourage people to come and sign him, clubs to sign him, because if they go down, they'll probably get half of that price. So Gomes one for me, I think, is an interesting one. 47 million, 42 million pounds. I think he'd be a good player. I think he would be a good value player. And when we're talking about value, this club loves to talk about value for money. It's like at times we're shopping in Poundland, right? The value for money, the value isn't there. Like, I get it. I do get it. But I think Wolves may entertain an offer. And again, are we that club to go and get somebody like that? Neves, so Rúben Neves, Portuguese Neves, playing in Saudi. I think that we can almost discard that, because I think he's just about to sign a new deal out there as well. Saudis like him. They're probably going to extend the contract as well. So look, I wouldn't mind him. I do think that Neves is probably now off of the table as well. Guehi, we can have a quick conversation about the Guehi thing as well. So Guehi, look, I think we've got to be in it to win it. I like Guehi. I think, what was he, 25, 26, the right age, the money will be right, very, very cheap for that sort of player. I don't think that we get him. I think he goes to a buy-in. Liverpool, look, Liverpool did all of the hard work. The reason why he's not a player there right now is because, circumstances. So I think Liverpool, would probably be the destination for him. Look, if we could go and get him, I think that'd be fantastic. And again, do you go and pay money for him now? Maybe you go and offer them 25 million, or at least for free. I think whoever can go for that deal, for me, I think we'll be getting a fantastic player there. what are we saying? What's Brad saying? We need to play Xerxes. He's probably the best player to help Cunha and Mbumo with his link-up play. But then I don't see where Xerxes then plays. I mean, I can see Xerxes playing as a 9, purely, the guy's 6'4", right? Is he a 9? I don't know. Xerxes for me is a conundrum, right? I do think there's a little bit of a myth around him. I think he did well at the back end of last season, got injured, sadly. Pre-season wise, he was injured for most of that as well. And I think, again, he's been a victim of the Bruno Fernandes stuff. I think the Bruno Fernandes decision, keeping him, whatever I think of him, that doesn't apply here. The Bruno Fernandes decision has impacted this season, has really impacted players this season. For the sake of keeping one player, instead of potentially selling him for 100 million, he's impacted, I would probably argue, Xerxes was 40 million? Cunha was 65. So for the sake of getting 100 million, God, I can't stop yawning. For the sake of getting £100 million player, 100 million pounds for him, he's actually impacting over 100 million pounds worth of players. You could probably argue Manu probably get 50 for him. So for the sake of not getting rid of 100 million pound player, he's not kind of, the value isn't there. But look, they were willing to pay that. He's impacting players. And I do think there's a little bit of a myth around how good Xerxes is. I don't know if he is that player. Again, he hasn't had a fair crack of the whip. He hasn't really played this season. When he has played, I've liked some of the things that he's done. I just want to know why these players don't play. I want to know, is it just a simple case of Amorim is basically surviving playing this group of leadership, and these players, it's not the fact these players are not good enough. Oh God, I'm yawning, sorry. Is that Amorim doesn't trust these players. So it's so hard. It's so hard. I want goals from all over the pitch, including Lamens. Nuno Mendes said he would move to United than any other team. Thomas says, did you see McTominay's goal against Denmark? I'm totally impressed by Scotland qualified for the world. Look, I thought it was brilliant. We watched it on here a bit. That goal was unbelievable. Just what a performance by Scotland. I think it's brilliant. I thought that fourth goal when he chipped him just before on the halfway line was fantastic. I'm so pleased for him. I am. My boys Wales 7-1 as well, which doesn't happen to us a lot. We went to Liechtenstein and beat them 1-0. So look, Wales have got through to the qualification or the playoffs as well. I don't know who they've got actually. Northern Ireland are in the playoffs as well. Ireland are there as well. So in an amazing world, it could be. God, I can't stop yawning. It could be that all of the home nations could be a World Cup. I think it's fantastic. Cunha, Mount, Mbumo, Ahmad, Manu, Xerxes, Bruno will still be our DLP, but we can rotate them as 6 as a front 3 plus Obi off the bench when needed. The only thing I'm going to say on Obi, and I know people are clambering for him to play, he's too young. I don't see that talent. Like, I see a talent there, but I don't see that Rooney in him. I don't see that Owen in him. And the reason why I mention those two players are because Rooney at 18 was ridiculous. At 16, he was mad. Michael Owen won a golden boot at 17 years old. You know, I don't see that. I don't see that, you know, when Martial came into this club, I think he was 18, wasn't he? And he came in and he scored that goal at Anfield in his first game. I don't see Obi as that player. I think Obi needs a loan. I don't think that Obi can come off the bench. I just don't. I think Carabao Cup would have been perfect. Obi for me, look, hopefully I can be wrong on this one, but I just don't see Obi playing this season. I think he needs a loan. Thomas says Madrid wanted to sign Mendes for backup when Alvaro. Do you think Mendes good move to Madrid from PSG? I hope he doesn't. I'd love him here. I think he'd be a fantastic signing. Scott says, just go for a Baleba, Anderson, or Wharton. Not having Anderson for 100 is ridiculous. Is the type of player that we need. I can never forgive Ten Hag for ignoring a talent like Alvaro. That's a war crime. You know, are we? I'll post something now, right? So you've got Eric Ten Hag, who fumbled quite a few things, right? Now, I can argue. Look, and I am an Amorim fan, right? Oh my god, I'm yawning so much. So I am an Amorim inner, right? We could argue the same here. I think we could argue the same that is Amorim, and I think this Amorim's playing a survival game here. Amorim, I think you could accuse Amorim of being the same. You know, a Kobe Mainoo. You know, if Kobe Mainoo was to leave, is that a bigger travesty than Alvaro leaving? You know, if Mainoo say left for 40 million, could it be argued that that's probably just as bad? So I think that what we're doing right now is I think we're suffering from coaches who don't really understand this club. You know, I would love to see some youth come into this squad. If we're looking at the Busby Babes, right? Like let's look at this, right? The greatest manager that we ever had in Ferguson, right? Trusted after winning a league, after winning two leagues, getting us back, he decided that he would take a chance and play the youth. You know, Fergie came into this squad, into this club, and what people don't quite get about him is that he revolutionised the youth. He believed in it. He pushed it. He revolutionised, you know, how we trained. You know, how he went to, you know, he went to someone's house. I think it was it Giggsy or like, and he basically used to go to the house and actually not beg them, but basically take them to the club. You know, he would look at their he would look at their dads, right, and to say, look, you know, is their dad an injury-prone guy? You know, what's their ancestral like, right? Because he wanted these best players, right, and he would play the youth. Oh, you look at what he did: Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes, Neville, Giggs. You know, you can even Roy Keane. When Roy Keane came into the club, he was what, 23. He believed in youth. This Ten Hag didn't really. This manager doesn't believe, and I just think sometimes these coaches don't really understand what this club is. So look, I'd love an OB to come through. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. Will United bring Alvaro Canaras in Jan? They can't. They can't because he's signed. He's a Madrid player. Madrid would rightly ask for 50 million quid. Are we now going to be that club again and go and sign a player for 50, 60 million pounds that we let go for 12.5 million? No. Question is, if we had sold Bruno in last summer, can you honestly trust our owners to reinvest 100 to buy a suitable replacement? No, I agree with you, but we shouldn't replace Bruno. We can't replace him. I don't think that we should replace him. I think we go in separate ways as a team. So we don't replace him, because you can argue you can't replace, right? You can't replace him. I think we go in a different. I think we should go in a different. We should go sort of for a different team. But I do agree, you cannot honestly trust them to reinvest that 100 mil. But at the same time, you can't not sell a player who's worth 50 and you get like 100 million for. Thomas says, will Onana stay in a summer friendlies or leave before the friendlies start? I don't know. I think we keep Onana until we don't make a book loss on him. That's what I think. I think we keep Onana until we either break even on him or we don't make a book loss. Going out for a bit, JB. See you later, pal. Alvaro Canares will choose not to return. He was in the Madrid academy. Ollie promised him future. He was criminally disrespected by Ten Hag. Northern Ireland and Wales can't qualify. Yes, they can. They can qualify. They might not be able to qualify together, but I know one of them can. I mean, I don't know. Let me have a look. So what you were saying is that Wales and Northern Ireland can't qualify because they are in the same group, so that would mean that they'd have to play each other, right? Is that what we're saying? So Wales get Bosnia. Let's look. Wales will face Bosnia. Yeah, you're right. Wow. Okay. So basically, Steve C. I agree with you. I don't think Wales are going to get to the World Cup. So Bosnia are going to be a difficult team, and then Italy in the final. Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. 1816 Munich, greetings from Germany. Christian, you're a legend. Kobe is still getting minutes here and there. Neves didn't even get, even when we had an injury crisis. Instead, Ten Hag got, yeah, he did, didn't he? He got Reguilon instead. Two home draw. Is it two home draws for Wales? Is it? I think they can do well. Look, I'm Welsh. I hope that we can do it. I really truly do. But I don't know. I really, stranger things have happened. I do hope that we can do it. But look, guys, I'm going to go. Another fantastic show. Thank you for being here as always. I'll be back this evening at some point. I just thought it was important to come on and do a little bit of a show. Talking about the as it's come out from Ben today. A little bit of a transfer expert as well. So it's always worth talking about this stuff and talking through it from a logical perspective and sort of putting our own stamp on. So look, guys, thank you for watching. Wales have had two great players in the last 30 years, apart from Giggsy and Bale. I don't remember any great players from the last 3 decades. I would say Ian Rush. Ian Rush always gets left out. Ian Rush, now let me tell you, Ian Rush was a magnificent player. Gary Speed, I think he was fantastic. Speed was amazing. Southall in goal was a great keeper as well. Other than that, we've had the odd fits and starts. Ramsey could have been such an amazing play, but injury sort of curtailed him a bit. Other than that, I mean, you know, we had players like Earnshaw, who wasn't particularly great. So Bellamy himself, I think, was a good player, not world class, but I think he was a good player. Mark Hughes, Mark Hughes, Mark Hughes was an amazing player. I think Hughesy is up there. I think Gary Speed is up there. Ian Rush is definitely up there as well for me. But other than those two, can't really think of anyone else. But yeah, so look, I am going to go. Have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I will be back this evening. I don't know what time that is for you guys out there. I'll bring in something into the show. Yeah, and then I will have an evening show, which is your show, and you can basically just come on and talk about whatever you like. So guys, I'll be back in a bit. Thank you for watching. You are legends, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.